guys, I'm Mai-linh Dovan, certified athletic therapist and founder of Rehab-U Movement and Performance Therapy. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This week we're going to talk about the Deadstart. When I teach trainers and therapists all over the world, one of the things that they're really missing when it comes to rehab periodization is a better understanding of training methods. So how an exercise, how reps are performed. You know, when the word rehab comes to mind, people default to 3 sets of 10. And I know that comes from research and literature, but there's a lot more we can do than 3 sets of 10. That's one thing. The other thing is that intensity is super important in rehab. That doesn't mean that volume's not important, but intensity is really important, and it's perhaps the missing piece a lot of the time, because we go all through these rehab exercises that are very low intensity, and we forget that we also have to overload the person. So at any point in the rehab process, you should be looking for how you're going to get intensity. Now you're thinking, okay, well, I can take my 3 sets of 10 and increase the load and make them 3 sets of 6. But when it comes to rehab, we have to think a little bit further than that. Intensity can be about how we're going to stress the tissues. Where in the range of motion do we want to stress the tissue? Where are those vulnerable positions that early on in the rehab process we had to protect that we now want to expose to stress, mechanical stress in the case of training, but stress. And that's also finding intensity in rehab. Today we're going to talk about a method that is popular in the world of training and could probably stand to be used a little bit more in rehab, the Deadstart. And we're going to go through a couple of different exercises that use the Deadstart, so starting the rep from inertia versus having that eccentric contraction contribute to the consequent concentric contraction. Okay, so we're not getting that storage of potential energy that's going to contribute to the concentric phase because we're starting from inertia. Hey guys, thanks for watching our videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. First exercise that we're going to go through as a Deadstart is a box squat. Now, I'm not only going to give you the example of the exercise, but also talk about where in the rehab process or what we'd be looking at. So for example, if you had someone who's coming back from low back pain or low back injury, you're wanting to work on maintaining tension through the trunk, tension through the hips, right? In the bottom position, in the seated position. If you had someone who had hip impingement because they were not maintaining good control of their pelvis, that might be something as well. Now the thing with the box squat that I do want to mention though is a lot of people sit and lean back on the box, okay? That's one way that people do box squats. We're going to maintain tension. So we're going to come to a Deadstart on the box, but we're going to maintain tension. Pierre-Luc is not going to sit back into his hips. He's not going to lean back. He's going to stay in that bottom squat position, maintain his torso in the same angle that he would if he didn't have the box or the bench. So the idea is as he comes down, he's going to maintain his positioning, he's going to maintain his tension, he's just going to do a full stop on the box and then come up and out. So you need a very deliberate, like 2 to 3 second stop, okay? Because you want to have as pure a concentric as possible. If he goes too fast and he just touches down and comes back up, then he's still used that energy that he accumulated on the eccentric to contribute to the concentric. If you really want a Deadstart, there has to be a complete stop at the bottom on the box, maintaining tension and not leaning back. Second exercise we can use is an Anderson squat. So an Anderson squat is a squat that starts from the bottom instead of starting from the top. So again, instead of accumulating energy on the descent, and then using that energy to contribute to the concentric portion of the squat, you're actually starting from the bottom, starting with the concentric, like you would a deadlift, for example. So that's the Anderson squat. Now again, let's give you a practical example of what you might be looking at from a rehab perspective. Again, if you had someone who had been struggling with hip impingement and you were for a long time limiting that hip flexion position because of the hip impingement and you're working your way back towards that, you can use the Anderson squat and you can progressively decrease the range. And what you're doing here is you're re-exposing that hip to deep flexion. right? And you're re-exposing that hip to deep flexion and creating intensity in that specific vulnerable part of the range of motion on the squat. So here's what it would look like. Now again, it's important to maintain that pause at the bottom, come to a dead full stop on the rack, and then from there up. So you can see that at each repetition, that bar is starting from complete inertia. He's having to overcome inertia each time. Third exercise that we can use to work with the Deadstart is a trap bar Deadstart. Now with the trap bar, remember we're talking squats today. With a trap bar you could do a deadlift or a squat pattern. We're going to do a squat. Again with the trap bar, if you come to a full and complete stop on the floor and you have the appropriate plates, you can use it as a dead start. The problem is always when we don't come to a full and complete stop on the floor, or we use smaller weights and we're not able to get the range of motion to get the trap bar right onto the floor. So here we're going to use an uneven loaded trap bar squat. So uneven loaded just means I've got more weight on one side than the other. When could this be useful? Anytime you're talking about any ankle, knee, hip, or even low back injury, right? Where people have those compensation, they're shifting to the uninjured side, right? And you're still working on that shift. So having the uneven load helps them or forces them to shift from one side to the other, right? To shift to the side where there is more load. Again, starting from the bottom, starting from a dead start, and complete stop at every rep. All right, guys, so that was just one single method, so one way we perform reps, right? There are plenty of others in the training world that can serve really, really well in rehab. So if you did find that useful, make sure you like and comment, and we'll do many, many, many more of these. By the way, on the uneven loaded trap bar squat, I forgot to mention you still want to do both sides, even though there's one injured side versus uninjured side. So again, that's a way that you can manipulate how reps are performed or the types of exercises that you're using based on how you want to create your intensity, which isn't just about load. It's also about how that load is applied, where in the range of motion you're intensifying that load, sometimes even the force vectors, and obviously at some point it's the speed of contraction as well. So there are many, many variables that we manipulate in training that are super, super valuable in rehab if they're in the right place. So it's not just 3 sets of 10 and then I increase my intensity by adding more weight and doing less reps, okay? So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Again, like I said, like and comment, and we'll do many, many more of these. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here.